Shanks is going after the One Piece. We've waited 25 years, but it is finally time. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and I cannot believe the thing it is that I am reading. I also cannot believe that we are close to 1 million members of the Grand Fleet. It is such a surreal number. So if you could spare some time to click a tantalizing red button, then we would greatly appreciate it. As would you, because it's fun to click things. But let's begin with some unexpectedly big news. The red hair pirates are pretty much just parked right outside Wano, like an Uber driver waiting to pick up their Luffy. But why are they here? Why aren't they elsewhere? And now that they're here, why aren't they staying? All of these questions and more exist. These panels gave me chills though, like good chills that is, because this is the closest that Shanks has been to Luffy since Marineford. Very much like another ships passing in the night scenario, because as we'll get into, Shanks apparently won't be meeting Luffy quite just yet. With that said, it was actually really cool to see the rest of the red hair pirates who have known Luffy since he was an itty bitty childling actually acknowledging that he is now a great pirate. He held up his part of the bargain. I mean, it's hard to be much greater than beating 2 emperors and being worth 3 billion berries. Not impossible, others have done it, but hard. I suppose because the definition of great pirate is so vague, it's really more up to Luffy to decide when that thing actually happens. Because sure, he's an emperor and sure, his bounty peen is looking mighty big and rather girthy, if I may say so these days. But at the same time, if his goal is to surpass Shanks, then he still has yet to do that. It feels like there's one more step up the mountain of vaguely defined greatness, and that step is to become the Pirate King. Minor note now, in this scene thing, we actually got introduced to some new members of the Red Hair Pirates. There were a bunch of rookies in the background, and I say rookies because they look like they were just scrubbing the decks of the Red Force. But I think one of them was a mink, because he was like an anthropomorphic gorilla-ish sort of thing. However, he also happened to have Hannibal's weird chody devil horns. It was an odd design, and I'm wondering if he's like half mink and half whatever Hannibal is, which I guess is half mink and half obese jail warden. Back to something more relevant though, it was a really satisfying moment watching Shanks take in Luffy's new bounty poster. It was a really rare expression for Shanks. And it's hard to describe, but I guess it's kind of like in this moment, Shanks is just breathing a sigh of relief. As if this was the moment Shanks was waiting for. The awakening of this devil fruit that he clearly knew the importance of, and he's looking at Luffy's bounty satisfied that his job is done. The sun god fruit made its way into the world, and from here on out, everything is going to be okay. With that said, I do want to highlight one of these panels because to me, Shanks, it just looks a little bit off. It's the one where he's holding the newspaper and I can't show it because I'm trying desperately not to have this channel killed by Shueisha from copyright strikes. But something about Shanks in that panel feels off. Like maybe his head is a bit too flat and his facial features are maybe too close together. I'm not sure, but it made me do a bit of a double take. Either way, Shanks is giving me the vibes of a proud father observing his child making his way into adulthood. And meanwhile, Yasopp, on the other hand, is quite rightfully terrified because he's facing the prospect of seeing the child that he abandoned for, well, no goodly stated reason, infant son and dying wife. I, Daddy Yasopp, have to go now for pirate reasons, by which I mean party non-stop with an unshaven red-haired man, and also a monkey will be there, so that'll be fun. Anyway, have a great life, and I'll see you again, maybe. But also, one of the best parts of 1054, which I should stress, in this case, all of the parts were equally the best part, but the Shanks flashback hit me pretty hard. It was incredibly nostalgic seeing scenes from Chapter 1 being drawn in Oda's more matured style, gained from a quarter of a century of experience. It draws a pretty stark contrast, but at the same time, I also feel like Oda did make an effort to maintain that classic aesthetic. Like the establishing shot of Fuchsia Village, for example. It felt like classic One Piece because Oda kept the background so simple and just dominated by sparse white. Something I appreciated far more than probably anyone should was seeing a young Who's Who in the flashback. And again, I had to linger on this for a bit because at first glance, he didn't really look any different. However, he does have a younger vibe because he has shorter hair and no mask. Oh, and also he's not smoking, which actually does a lot to emphasize his youth, because in One Piece, smoking is generally a trait given to older individuals, middle-aged and up. Unless you're Sanji, but then again, the entire reason why he started smoking was to become an adult faster. So he's an exception whose very existence proves the rule. But the thing that struck me most has to do with one of my favorite wanky words to use in Year 12 English exams, which is juxtaposition. Within this flashback, we have a character who we didn't meet until close to 1,000 chapters in, being somewhat responsible for the events that kicked off the series in Chapter 1. So that side-by-side mashing of old and new material together, that really does a lot for me. And it reminds me that everything in this world is insanely well connected. I do honestly have to wonder though how much of this section of the chapter was planned to act as a bit of hype for Film Red, because that will be releasing in Japan and France in 2 weeks, and this coincides very conveniently with the Shanks hype in the manga. But this was also quite a shocking scene, particularly the part where Shanks said that he was not going to meet Luffy. And this is where things took an intriguing yet sinister feeling twist. And let's be real here, there was a good excuse for not seeing Luffy during the Paramount War. I mean, he was unconscious, so it would have been difficult for Luffy to see anything, but also because he had yet to become a great pirate. And in fact, this was probably the lowest moment of Luffy's or potentially anyone's pirating career. But this time around, Shanks is just like, nah, I'm not gonna meet with Luffy. And the crew are like, okay, but why? And then all Shanks has to say is, because a urinating rooster dude is making me look bad at a place that isn't here. It feels like an excuse. I mean, I don't think that Bartolomeo could do so much damage in the hour or two that it would take Shanks to go and see Luffy. So I guess the question becomes, does Shanks mean that he's not going to see Luffy right now? Or does he not intend to meet Luffy ever again? I mean, narratively, it's always presented a slightly awkward event because Luffy will try to return the hat, but due to the nature of what that hat represents, can't really go backwards, probably needs to be passed forward to the next generation rather than reverting to its redly headed former master. The whole situation just seems potentially not as friendly as we may have predicted this moment to be. In fact, I do wonder if Bartolomeo may accidentally end up sending Shanks to war with Luffy, given that he is a non-consensual Luffy representative. And speaking of Bartolomeo, he is also in Film Red, so I imagine that this whole conflict will be touched on there in some way, shape or form. Not in any particularly meaningful way, shape or form, mind you. But what is meaningful are Shanks' intentions to now go after the One Piece. This last panel gave me a brand new feeling that I'm going to describe as bittersweet hype. Shanks essentially saying it's time to do the thing it is that the series was made for is ridiculously exciting because we are finally going to get to the One Piece. But it's also another flag that One Piece is in its final stages, and however long that may take, it is now preparing to end. I'm interested in the idea of Shanks actually competing for the One Piece though, because why? I suppose one good reason would be to stack the odds in favor of a certain sun god and prevent a certain hippo god from becoming the next pirate king and plunging this world into a dystopia where everyone has to eat cherry pie all day, every day. And especially on Blackbeard Day, a public holiday, where everyone celebrates with a customary cherry pie. But there's also some twist potential here where Shanks goes on to become a bit of a rival and actually stands in the way of Luffy. And when it comes to writing Shanks, I think that Oda has always been very, very good at making us consistently question his motivations, to the point where 25 years later it's still hard to tell whether he'll be an ally, an enemy, or perhaps even some kind of corpse, because he might die and then he and Luffy will never get to meet because of, well, the aforementioned death. Meanwhile, slightly closer to Luffy and actually on the Wano, Admiral Greenbull is, I'm just gonna say it, he's being a bit of a prick. This guy has gone from hostile to full-blown absolute justice. I mean, he has so many terrible lines in this chapter. Terribly good because they do a lot for his character, but he's also a terrible character, in a good way. Like the whole willing to kill thousands of people just to capture one times Luffy, but also not caring in any way because if you're not part of the world government, well then you have no rights, you probably don't deserve to be classified as some sort of person. And then an even deeper philosophy that a lower class of being is essential to maintain global balance. Basically, discrimination plus question mark equals balance. So you can really tell that he follows in the footsteps of Sakazuki. And I imagine that Green Bull was actually handpicked by Sakazuki due to their shared philosophy. Something I really enjoyed was his standoff against the vassals. You know, the guys that collectively fought against Kaido. And they lost pretty abysmally. But they put up a decent fight and they are no joke, not even to an admiral. And honestly, I still have a bit of trouble following Ryokugi's logic here. He thinks that he can start a battle fight with the forces that just beat 2 emperors of the sea, and he is still so damn cocky about it. It makes me wonder if he'd be the same way if Sakazuki had ordered him to directly attack Big Mom and Kaido together. I will say that Green Bull, more so than the other admirals, seems to show some youthful ignorance, or maybe even general inexperience with the world, because in theory he's only been with the Marines for 2 years. And that does catch up with him during this chapter, as Yamato provided such a satisfying admiralific smackdown. And Green Bull even had a moment of going, ouch, that hurt my tree head. And I think everyone everyone present here is even more willing to fight against Green Bull than they were against Kaido. And it's because, as mentioned in the chapter, Wano has just been freed from 20 years of tyrannical oppression just for Treehead Woodfist here to rock up and threaten to do it all over again. Just this time with, well, admittedly lovely flowers. And that actually led to another thing that I certainly did not expect, which was a brave Momonosuke joining the fight against a Marine Admiral. To be fair, I don't think that anyone here actually knows, or I suppose cares, about what it means to be an admiral, but Momo impressed the hell out of me. I especially liked when he went straight for the bite, because it's a direct callback to him summoning up the courage to bite Kaido, and Luffy's words, which I will paraphrase as, "You just om-nom-nommed an Emperor of the Sea, you don't have to be scared of any of the things." And Momo legitimately isn't scared. There was no hesitation when he went for that bite. This boy has grown the crap up. Although he did follow that up with a hilariously pathetic borrow breath, so you know that there's still lots of growing to go. I mean, it's kind of a shame because, you know, massive amounts of fire, that'd be a pretty handy natural counter to general nature. But I loved towards the end of the scene where Momo stopped Yamato from intervening. I have no idea what he's planning, or honestly even if he's planning, but Wano's new guardian deity is starting to take his job very seriously. And that might be due to the knowledge that there won't always be someone around to help him in these kind of situations. Soon Yamato will be gone, as will Luffy, the worst generation, and all of the other people, and Wano is going to have to defend itself against these kind of horrific threats. So I think that this is Momo trying to step up and prove that he can protect Wano as its shogun. Also, how's this for a fun fact? Momonosuke has now bitten both an emperor and an admiral. I don't think that any other character in One Piece has accomplished that. And something I haven't even touched on yet is the revelation of Ryokugyu's magical fruit powers, which is surprisingly a Logia, the Mori Mori no Mi, or forest fruit. And every page featuring his powers were beautifully drawn. So stunning that I had to linger on each and every one of these panels because my eyes demanded the satisfaction of taking it all in. I'm gonna put this out there though, as amazing as it is, Green Bull does look an awful lot like a broccoli. It's a pretty crazy concept for a Logia as well. The idea of becoming intangible nature. It almost suits the definition of a mythical Zoan a bit better, with Green Bull becoming this Gaia-esque creature. But I'm going to use the word again, juxtaposition. The power to create stunning but also kind of mundane beauty in the hands of a cold, uncaring for life murderer guy. So I guess we'll get to see nature at its most fearsome, which is kind of cool. I do hope this finally puts to rest any ideas that Green Bull is Zoro's father or even Shimotsuki Uchimaru, because unless this is the finest acting of 2022, and hey, it is One Piece so anything can happen, but right now all of that is looking mighty unlikely. And there is so much more. This week is so unbelievably packed. I mean, Sabo, Vivi, Cobra, Sakazuki, the new character dude, and the insanity of just everything else happening in the world. It's so huge that I can't even cover it in just one video. So next up is a deep dive to what's happening with Sabo, and I very much look forward to seeing you there.